Welcome to Stories at Night. Please like and subscribe if you end up liking the story. Let's begin.
I was brought home to be a living poultice for a wound that wouldn't close. Annie named me Mist, perhaps because I was the colour of a foggy morning, or perhaps because she felt herself disappearing into one. Before me, there was Leo. I never felt the heat of his skin or heard the rumble of his voice, but I knew his name before I knew my own. It was the word Annie whispered into my fur when she thought I was asleep. Leo had been a man of noise and velocity until a slick patch of asphalt and a sharp turn took him away, a motorcycle accident. They called it a clinical phrase for the moment Annie's world stopped spinning while the rest of the earth kept going. The grief that followed was a physical presence in the apartment, a thick, suffocating velvet that coated every surface. It was in the way the air stayed still for days and how the lights rarely flickered on. I was brought into that wreckage as a tiny smudge of grey stripes and white paws, specifically to fill the holes that Leo had left behind. I wasn't just a pet. I was a 10-pound anchor, the only thing keeping Annie from drifting away into the before. For the first few years, my life was a study in silence. Annie didn't move much in those days. She was a creature of the heavy stillness. I learned to read the topography of her grief like a map. I knew that if she sat on the left side of the sofa, she was going to stare at the photo of Leo on the mantel for 3 hours, tracing the lines of his smile with her eyes until the sun went down. My job was simple. I was the guardian. When she cried that low, rhythmic shaking that made the bed vibrate, I would climb onto her chest. I would press my white blazed throat against her collarbone and purr with everything I had. I was trying to override the silence. I was trying to tell her, I am here, I am solid, I am alive. We lived in a grey world. The apartment smelled of lavender detergent and the dust of things that weren't being used. I grew into a large, sturdy tabby, my stripes darkening into charcoal. My white paws always ready to steady her. I thought this was all there was. I thought my purpose was to be the only heartbeat she heard. The change didn't happen with a bang. It happened with a chemical shift in the air. It was a Tuesday. I met Annie at the door, expecting the usual scent of the office and the subway. But when I rubbed my cheek against her shin, I froze, my whiskers flared. There was something else. A foreign scent. It was sharp, like the air at the top of a hill, mixed with something warm like sandalwood. It was the scent of the outside, but a version of the outside that wasn't tinged with Leo's old gasoline and leather. This was fresh. This was living. I looked up at her. Her eyes were bright. She didn't look at the photo of Leo on the mantel that night. She looked at her phone. Over the next few weeks, the scent grew louder. It moved from her shoes to her coat, then to her skin. It became a permanent passenger on her sweaters. I began to associate this smell with a new sound Annie was humming. It was a low, melodic vibration that travelled through the floorboards and into my pores. The heavy stillness was cracking. Then came the peace offering. Annie came home with a brown paper bag. It smelled of Jason. That was the name. She started saying Jason. It was a soft sound, a name that felt like a secret. She knelt on the kitchen floor, her knees hitting the tile with a confidence that I hadn't heard in years. Look, Mist, she whispered. Jason made these. He's a baker. He wanted you to have them. She held out a biscuit shaped like a fish. It smelled of salmon and rosemary. I sniffed it, my nose twitching. It didn't smell like a bribe, it smelled like an introduction. I ate it. It was rich and crunchy. I looked at Annie, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one taking care of her anymore. Jason was helping. The day the door opened and 2 sets of feet walked in, I was ready. I didn't hide under the bed. I sat in the hallway, my tail wrapped neatly around my white paws. Jason was tall, but he didn't loom. He moved with a careful, grounded grace. He looked at the photo of Leo on the mantel, and he didn't look angry. He looked respectful, the way one soldier looks at another. He was acknowledging the man I had replaced. Then he did the most important thing a man can do. He sat on the floor. He didn't reach for me. He just put his hand flat on the rug, palm up, and waited. I circled him. I breathed him in. He smelled of flower, cedar, and honesty. He didn't smell like a ghost. He smelled like a future. I pressed the white bridge of my nose against his knuckles. He stayed still, honoring the weight of the moment. I gave him a short, sharp meow. Fine, I told him, you can stay, but I'm still the boss. The apartment doesn't smell like missing anymore. Leo's leather jacket is gone, moved to a box in the attic. The silence has been replaced by the sound of two people making coffee, the clinking of mugs, and the shared laughter that fills up the corners of the rooms. The heavy stillness has been traded for a light warmth. Tonight, they are on the sofa. Jason has his arm around Annie, and she is leaning her head on his shoulder. Her hand, the one that used to tremble when she looked at Leo's motorcycle, is resting steadily on Jason's knee. I jump up. I don't hesitate. I walk across their laps, navigating the new landscape of their joined lives. I settle down right in the middle, a grey tabby bridge connecting them. I feel Jason's hand rest on my flank, and Annie's fingers scratch behind my ears. I close my eyes. My whiskers relax. For the first time in my life, I don't feel the need to be a sentinel. I don't have to watch for the grief to return. Jason is here to hold the other side of the anchor. I let out a long, rumbling purr. My shift is over. I am no longer the guardian of the quiet. I am just a cat, finally asleep in a house that is full.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to help support the chains and its original stories. Bye!